We know much more about the solar system and distant planets than we have about the rocks and dirt below us. People have dedicated their lives to finding out what lies below the Earth's surface without having much success. A group of Soviet scientists spent decades trying to do just that. On one of their expeditions, they uncovered something buried deep inside the Earth's crust, making a groundbreaking discovery that caused them to shut down their machines for good. You're not going to believe what they found. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. With advances in space technology, we can look through telescopes literally into the past and gather information from billions of miles away. In fact, it took the same amount of time for NASA's Voyager 1 satellite to exit the solar system and relay information from 10.2 billion miles away as it did for researchers to reach just 7 miles into the Earth's crust. So, what do we know about what's lying underneath us? During the well-known space race that gripped the 1950s, Cold War rivals the United States and the USSR battled to achieve spaceflight supremacy. While both nations made their discoveries in space exploration, a lesser-known battle was taking place. Few people remember the other fascinating pursuit. The country's greatest geologists had the goal of drilling as far deep as they could into the Earth's crust. But what was so interesting about dirt and rocks? You might be thinking that dirt and rocks are far less interesting than the cosmos. But in the late 1950s and 60s, the Americans and the Soviets began their separate missions to create boreholes through the outermost layer of the planet to answer questions about what lies beneath the surface. Usually, boreholes are dug for oil, and not many are dug purely for the purpose of science. Though it might not be as mysterious as space, the Earth's crust holds some fascinating secrets of its own. Drilling into the ground is like putting a telescope inside the Earth's crust. The crust is the outermost layer of the planet, the rocky shell making up the outer 20 miles of the 4,000 miles distance inward to the Earth's core. Under the crust lies the mysterious mantle, the widest section of the planet that no one has ever managed to reach by drilling before. This is because even just the crust, the closest layer to the ground we walk on every day, is way too thick to drill through. So, how do scientists get to the center of the Earth? In the beginning, scientists took shortcuts to get closer to the core by drilling through the sea. The Earth's outer layer is made up of two types of crust: continental and oceanic crusts. The land lies on the continental crust, and the oceanic crust sits under the sea floor. Because the continental sections are much older and thicker, they're much tougher to drill through. The newer oceanic crust is only 4 to 6 miles thick, making it easier to reach the second layer through the ocean. U.S. scientists led the first ever project of its kind, drilling into the ocean, in the early 1960s. Just off the coast of Guadalupe Island, Mexico, their goal was to drill far enough into the Pacific Ocean that they could reach the boundary between the crust and the upper mantle. The project was known as the Mohorovičić Discontinuity, or Mohole, hence the witty name Project Mohole. Both sides aimed to drill deep and solve the mystery of the mantle. The Americans sought to rival the space race underground, launching Project Mohole to drill into the Earth's crust. However, after 5 years and $40 million in costs, the project was abandoned in 1966, having reached only 601 feet. This left an opportunity for the Soviets, who were eager to take the lead. In spring 1970, Soviet scientists began drilling in the Kola Peninsula in the Arctic Circle, determined to exceed the Americans' depth. Their approach involved a central borehole with multiple offshoots. Within 2 years, they reached 23,000 feet and had to modify their equipment to go further. By 1974, with upgraded tools, they set a new goal, 49,000 feet, a depth never reached before. Meanwhile, the Lone Star Producing Company in Oklahoma began drilling for oil. In just 18 months, they created the Bertha Rogers Hole, reaching 31,441 feet, the deepest hole at the time. However, the project was halted after hitting a sulfur gas deposit. The Americans held the record for 5 years, until the Soviets took the lead again. On June 6, 1979, the Soviet SG-3 borehole surpassed the American record, reaching 38,261 feet by October 1982. The following year, a second borehole was drilled, exceeding 39,000 feet. Work was temporarily suspended for scientific research, and in 1983 the site was showcased in a geological exhibition. However, when drilling resumed, new technical issues arose. By 1984, the drill had reached 39,687 feet when it broke down, causing a major delay. Instead of repairing it, the team restarted from 23,000 feet. By 1987, they reached 40,230 feet, 7.5 miles into the earth. Encouraged by this, they aimed for 44,000 feet by 1990 and 49,000 feet by 1993. However, equipment failures mounted, progress slowed, and doubts about the project's feasibility grew. The deeper they drilled, the more unpredictable the conditions became. For the first 10,000 feet, the rock formations matched expectations, but as they passed 40,000 feet, temperatures soared past 300 degrees Fahrenheit, far hotter than expected. The rock became less dense and plastic-like, making drilling nearly impossible. Despite setting records, the mission was abandoned in 1992 after 22 years of drilling. Though they reached an unprecedented depth, they were still far from their goal, the mantle, which is believed to start 22 miles below the surface. The Kola borehole revolutionized geological research, allowing scientists to study the Earth's crust firsthand. However, despite decades of effort, this was merely a scratch on the planet's surface. The borehole remains the deepest man-made hole ever drilled, proving the immense challenge of reaching the Earth's hidden layers. In September 1984, after reaching 39,687 feet, the drill broke down, with a large section twisting off. Repairs took 2 years, and instead of fixing the damaged borehole, the Soviets restarted drilling from 23,000 feet. By 1987, they reached 40,230 feet, 7.5 miles into the Earth, keeping them on track. Encouraged, they aimed for 44,000 feet by 1990 and 49,000 feet by 1993. However, repeated equipment failures slowed progress, and confidence in the project began to fade. As drilling continued, unpredictable challenges arose. While the first 10,000 feet matched geological expectations, beyond 40,000 feet, temperatures soared past 300 degrees Fahrenheit, exceeding the predicted 212 degrees Fahrenheit. The rock also became less dense and plastic-like, making drilling almost impossible. The extreme conditions exceeded the limits of their equipment. By 1992, after 22 years of drilling, the project was abandoned. The borehole reached 7.5 miles into Earth's crust, but their goal of reaching the mantle, believed to start 22 miles below, remained out of reach. The Kola borehole allowed scientists to study the Earth's crust firsthand, providing insights beyond traditional seismic studies. Though it remains the deepest hole ever drilled, it barely scratched the surface of Earth's vast interior. The borehole was too narrow for anyone to enter, but researchers still made a fascinating discovery nearly 4 miles down: microscopic fossils of 24 species of single-cell plankton. Remarkably, they were intact despite being encased in rock over 2 billion years old. At the deepest point, researchers found something unexpected. Scientists had believed the Earth's crust transitioned from granite to basalt at a certain depth, but in the Kola Peninsula, they found only granite. This challenged previous geological assumptions and revealed metamorphic differences in the rock. The most astonishing discovery came when they found flowing water miles beneath the surface, where no one thought water could exist. Some saw this as proof of biblical accounts, while scientists explained it as a result of extreme pressure squeezing hydrogen and oxygen from rock crystals, trapping water underground. Despite these breakthroughs, the project was abandoned in the early 1990s due to funding cuts following the fall of the Soviet Union. Drilling deeper became unfeasible, and by 1995, the Kola super deep borehole was sealed with a metal cap. Today, the site in Murmansk Oblast, Russia, remains a crumbling relic of scientific history, flagged as an environmental hazard but still attracting curious visitors. Though the Soviets drilled for over 2 decades, they reached only 0.02% of the way to Earth's center. No borehole has ever surpassed Kola in true vertical depth. In 2008, Maersk Oil's well in Qatar reached a measured depth of 40,318 feet. But in absolute depth, the Kola borehole remains unmatched. Scientists have yet to explore Earth's mantle directly. Despite advances in space travel, reaching deep into the Earth remains far more challenging. As geophysicist David Stevenson explains, going from 5 to 10 kilometers down is much harder than going from 0 to 5 in space. More than 50 years after the Soviets began drilling, the site remains the deepest man-made point on the planet. With extreme temperatures and unpredictable geology still posing major obstacles, the quest to uncover Earth's hidden secrets continues. Who knows? Perhaps one day another ambitious subterranean exploration will push even deeper, revealing mysteries still waiting beneath our feet.